Welcome to the Brett Davis Podcast. Hello, everybody. This is Brett Davis, of course, and I'm with Paulie Walshin. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
So he's the author of the book Daddy Issues.
Walshin.
Did I say Walshin?
You said Wilshin.
Why do I want to do that? At least I didn't say what we said originally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's
Walshin.
Walshin.
Perfect.
Martian. Walshin.
Walshin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you look very nice today.
Thank you. So do you.
And well,
even though your hat, I'm
sorry. There's always a story with everything. You know that.
Is there a story with that hat?
Well, I was a Charger fan for years.
Thank you. Oh my God. Now you're I haven't seen football in 6 years.
Well, when you watch the Chargers, you can always count on one thing.
They're going to not go to the Super Bowl.
They're going to lose every time. When it comes, well, not only that, just the ownership.
No. Oh yeah. Spanos. Oh yeah. I have not. I arranged church on Sundays around Charger football for 15 years.
Yeah, well, that was your first mistake. I understand that the new definition in Wikipedia is if you look under the word shit, it's no longer there.
What is it?
Spanos now.
It's true.
Sorry, guys. That's just the way it is.
It is the way it is. Oh my God. You're my new best friend. Yeah. You love the Chargers.
Yeah. And I had a couple of situations where Mr. Spanos never showed up for some appointments and stood me up on radio. So yeah. So there you go. Karma's a bitch.
Yeah.
And then you move to LA and it becomes even worse. So
congratulations. You're losing still. Haha. Come back, Chargers. We miss you.
Don't come back unless you get rid of your owner.
Yeah, get rid of your owner and then build us a killer stadium. I don't know where now because
we have one. Here's the thing. That stuff's all negative stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know we're going to be positive. I'm sorry. I do.
Your story,
I love the Chargers.
So. Well, I don't like it. To me, staying with something that continues to be abusive ends up being more psychological than a relationship.
True. That's true. That's daddy issues.
Well, that's maybe the sideline over the what's it called? The segue?
It is segue.
Yeah, the segue into where we're going to go. I think everybody has mommy or daddy issues.
True.
In some way or another. Would you agree?
Yeah, we did not get an instruction book when we had children. No.
Can you hear me okay? She sounds wonderful, but I don't know if it sounds like I'm falling. How are you doing? I don't want to sound like that.
Yeah, we're just going to sit up straight.
So you wrote this book. Now, why don't we tell for the audience that is not familiar with the book Daddy Issues, why don't we explain the story and how, first of all, let's talk about what the major word that was involved with the word daddy issues. Where did this whole thing derive from with your father?
Okay. So I'll make it a long, short story and then you can ask me more questions. So my parents were divorced when I was 6 months old. And then he got kind of a new family. And back in the 70s, there were no rights really for dads. So my mom I saw him here and there, not a lot. And then our pastor in Memphis showed up at our house on a rainy day.
And that's where you're from, is Memphis?
Originally from Arkansas, but I lived in Memphis because my mom helped start Federal Express. So she was one of the founding members of Federal Express.
And here I was just joking about Federal Express.
Yeah, I know. That was
not
funny.
Their fault, though.
You're very intuitive, by the way.
I try to be.
No, you are. You don't have to try. It's just a natural gift that you have. So he showed up at my house and he told me that my dad had committed suicide, that he had jumped off the White River Bridge.
Who's this that told you?
Our pastor, Dr. Sutherland. He already passed away. He lived in Memphis.
Did he know that or was he just saying that?
No, he got the phone call from my mom. Hey, I don't know how to tell my daughter, like her dad's dead. Can you come over? And so I trusted him, right? Like he was the best man, such a good person. And so he came over, he told me, I literally just played with Barbies for 24 hours. Cause in that moment I was like, what happened to my dad? I didn't get it. So
and you were how old again?
7. It was my birthday. It was the day before. So it was like my birthday. It was my birthday present. It was either the day before or the day after, but it was my birthday time. Right?
Sure.
And so for the next 10 years, my mom was a single mother and she believed he was dead. However, we would have weird things happen. Like people would call in the middle of the night, weird phone calls. These 2 men showed up once from Colombia in long coats saying they'd seen us at Wendy's and they were wondering how I was. Could they have pictures of me? Just a lot of really weird things happened. And then once they closed our school down, my school down in Memphis, because there was going to be a kidnapping. Now my mom still thinks my dad's dead, but all these weird things are happening.
So you mean kidnapping of you?
Yes. Like for ransom. But my mom still thought he was dead, so she didn't understand.
So Pops owed apparently these gentlemen some money.
Or they were afraid he was going to rat on them, right? So
Well, it's one of the two, but usually it comes down to money.
it always comes back to money. So he magically came back to life when I turned 16, and I was in England, Arkansas, I'm from Little Rock, but my whole family lives in England, Arkansas. And on the front page of the England Gazette, which is the newspaper there, it said Gary Wayne Betzer indicted for possession of 1,000 kilos of cocaine in Lake City, Florida. So all of a sudden he was alive. So now I'm like, where did he go? Which begun the like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't he take me? Why did he die? Why was I not good enough? Like that was like.
So you're probably around 17 at that point?
I was almost 16. And then he was in federal prison. And so.
Did you have contact at all?
Yeah. So my mom would take me like to all the federal prisons to visit them, like Arizona, like all over, just to have time with him, to get to know him. I don't really think that's a great idea for a kid to visit their dad in prison, but my mom thought I needed to have some kind of relationship with my dad to help like heal whatever had happened.
So I guess the question would be, in that situation, knowing what you know now, was that part of a healing process of being able to move on, or did it some way cause more problems for you?
It definitely caused more problems because I wanted to know more about him. I got more like enamored with like, oh, my dad, he was like the largest drug smuggler in US history. So that's what ended up happening in those 10 years. He was a fugitive. He was a crop duster originally. So when he faked his death jumping off the bridge, he became a fugitive, and then our government came in and blah, blah, blah. And he became a drug smuggler, and the Iran Contra scandal and all this crazy stuff. So I started.
So he was involved with the Iran Contra scandal.
Yes, he was. So there is a documentary coming out in April about it.
Are you in the documentary?
I am. So they came to San Diego and they interviewed me like in June. It comes out April 9th, and it's called The Invisible Pilot on HBO.
Okay.
And so in that, they kind of depicted the whole story of like what really happened. How did you fly the guns down to the Contras and the Sandinistans? Why did you fly the drugs back? Like what happened to the money? Like it's a whole story about what happened.
Well, the thing about documentaries, and I know because we're working on one, is they're usually it's almost an investigative type of film.
Right.
And there's a lot of pieces that are put together, because when you're telling a documentary story, you have to have that.
Yes.
Compared to like a regular movie, which
Correct.
is kind of Hollywoodish. And
yes.
But you can really build a good, solid story with the documentary.
Well, it was really cool because 10 years, I mean, this is divine intervention. This is what I feel is divine intervention. I wanted to write this book for 20 years, right? Like, and I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then.
Why do you think that was?
I feel like God wasn't done with my story yet.
Okay.
That's what I feel. And so, I mean, he's still never done with our story till we get to go meet him one day, right? So it's always a story.
I don't think the story stops until we physically stop living
in here on earth.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it was the story for the book is what I feel like it was time.
Sure.
So when quarantine happened in 2020, my husband was like in hand sanitizer world. I mean, he thought he was going to make $1 million in hand sanitizer and face masks.
Some people did.
He was like really like every day on the phone, 100 hours. And I was like, okay, what do I do? I've got this man on the phone trying to like crush it with hand sanitizer. I guess I'll write. So I wrote the book during quarantine. So, and then when it came out in March, when I gave my physical copy to my publisher, like, I don't know, I had no idea what I was doing. I handed it to her. The people from the documentary that had been filmed 10 years before the series, it was my half brother's friend that spent his own money, like $300,000 to go all over the world to try to put the pieces together about my dad. He was just fascinated because he's from a little town in Bisco, Arkansas. So it's like look at this story. And he could never get the story picked up by anyone ever until 2021, which now my book's done. Right. In like April. And then he contacts me. His name is Craig. He contacts me and says, hey, we got HBO to pick up the documentary and I don't have any creative control anymore. So that they can control the narrative, which is pretty amazing. Do you want to be interviewed? I was like, wow, it could not be more perfect timing. The book just came out. Bring them on, you know? So they came to San Diego and they interviewed me for like 2 days. And they talked about the book in San Diego. I said, you better put a plug in for San Diego because this is the greatest city in the whole world. But we don't want everybody to move here just for us.
And don't come to Coronado because we have a very bad homeless problem going on here, and it's Coronado is just a very shameful place to have.
Yeah, don't come to Point Loma either. We don't want you there.
You don't want to come to these areas. You just stay over where you're at.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
You're happy where you should be happy where you're at.
Yeah, be happy. Bloom where you're planted.
Exactly. So this movie's coming out in April.
Yeah.
And your book's been out how long?
2 weeks.
It's perfect timing.
Yeah. It's crazy. And they were actually supposed to release it in February, the docuseries. And then they're like, oh no, it's going to be April 9th. So we can do more premieres and more pushing of the movie to get it publicized. Cause it's, so Adam McKay that did Don't Look Up is he's above the producer. The producer, it's HBO Max, but Phil Lott directed it, which is Ample Entertainment, but it's somehow they're connected with Adam McKay. So he's pretty big in Hollywood right now, especially after Don't Look Up. So I think they need more time to like push it and get it out there. Okay.
So anybody out there with your story, because I mean, it's like peeling an onion. There's so many layers to it. It isn't just, it's not a simple story, but it's very fascinating. There's another, we talked about this earlier. There was another movie that Tom Cruise made.
Right.
And that wasn't quite portrayed the way that it was supposed to be.
No. So that is the difference in a docuseries and a movie. Just exactly like you said earlier. You said it's Hollywoodized and then there's the truth. So I just kudos to Ample Entertainment. They did an amazing job documenting everything. I mean, I haven't seen the final product, but they asked for pictures of me and my mom. They asked for pictures from my half brother and half sister. Like they wanted the full picture of like what really happened. And so the movie called Born in America was about another guy, and he was really a nobody on the scene. He really wasn't the guy flying the drugs down, the guns down and bringing it back. He wasn't, that was just totally Hollywood. Like this is literally like what really happened.
So who wrote that story?
I don't know. I don't know who wrote that story. I have no idea.
It looks like they got bits and pieces and kind of formed it. And
they did.
It's kind of scary that they can do that, but it's been going on for years anyway in Hollywood, right?
Of course. They make the lie look like the truth, right? They make the lie look like a truth and make truth look like a lie so that they can confuse you so that we're all pitted against each other. And
what I like is when you can actually say, and it's more legitimate, taken from true events.
Right.
Rather than saying this is a true story.
Right.
Taken from true events.
Then you can kind of manipulate it. Like how you want.
Then you can people go and say, okay, well, story is original, but maybe it's very possibly not everything is accurate. And I think you get more respect that way too.
Yeah, it's true.
The people that watch it.
Yeah.
And the books are never quite as good. The good books, like the one you've written.
Yeah.
Daddy Issues. The book's always the one that has the depth and the true facts typically of what really does happen.
Yeah.
The problem is we got a society that is so used to everything on the phone that everything is quick and fast.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to really read like they used to before.
It's true.
And that's kind of sad.
It is really sad because when I wrote this, it is literally every single thing that's ever happened in my entire life. And then all the therapy that I've done to fix all those things and what I learned in those to give you tools to not make those mistakes. Mm-hmm. But when I wrote it, it was cathartic. I mean, it was like gut wrenching because I had to relive all those things.
Sure.
So it is the truth. It's everything that happened, except for the names are different in the book, but it is everything that ever happened in my life. And like you said earlier, like, how did that affect you? Like going to see him in jail, was that healing? Was that a healing thing for you? And the truth is no, like it wasn't. It was, I mean, he wrote me a lot of really cool letters. Like he's a super intelligent man. He's not stupid. He's a very smart guy. He was a Mensa member. My dad was super smart.
You're very smart.
Hey, oh, thank you.
You are. It comes across.
Thank you. Well, my mom's really smart too. So,
well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Thank you. But I'll tell you a story. Can I tell you a story?
I thought that's what we've been talking about the whole time.
Right, but it's a pretty funny story. So when I found out my dad lived in Hawaii when he was a fugitive, like immediately, so I was a deadhead, right?
Oahu?
No, Big Eye. So Big
Island.
Island.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Big Island.
So he was a Halle.
He was a Hallie, but he was a hippie dope grower in Hawaii.
By the way, there's still a few of those things going on over there.
Yeah, you think?
I know.
Oh, I know too. And so anyway, I wanted to know more about him. So I was a hippie. I was following the Grateful Dead, blah, 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 blah. So the guy that I was dating who like, was like I thought it was some hippie guru, but he was really just some like homeless guy. Was like my first boyfriend, right? My mom was horrified because I grew up like Southern Baptist in the South. And I moved to California when I'm 18. My mom's like, oh my God, what happened? So I was like, I want to go to Hawaii and see where dad was. So we go. And I literally went with one-way ticket with 20 other hippies. We lived in a park, like in a tent. We would like gather our food in the daytime, and that's what we ate. I had no money. I would hitchhike around the island and like do like, well, can I say this on TV?
This is on TV. You can say anything. Can she say anything she wants? Is she on Facebook?
Well, that's the truth. So I
is this bad language?
No, it's not bad. So I would take acid. This is before Jesus for me. And I would like be in the canyon and like experience like, you know, whatever I thought I saw to try to like get closer to my dad. Right.
Sure.
And I mean, as cool as it sounds, I was, you know, like a hippie living in a tent in a park, living on food with all these other hippies in a park.
It was
like
a commune.
It was a commune. And
you know, actually, the way you're describing it, it almost sounds like you were homeless.
Well, yeah, but I felt at home because it was warm.
So you were held at home, so you were homeless.
Yeah, I felt cool. I was like, my mom had a house for me, but I felt like I was trying to be like maybe I was trying to be in character, like Lee Strasberg, right? But
method acting.
Yeah, I was method acting. And then in the end, when I figured out like this is where my dad's property was, this was his cool, rich friends that he had over there, but I didn't want to like hang out with them. I wanted to be like in the park with the hippies, playing the drums, eating the fruit that we picked in the morning, you know? And in the end, I finally went home, and then my mom was like, we're out of here. Like, open the map. Where are we going to go? Her and I picked Atlanta. We moved there like 3 months later. But that was part of like the process of seeing all these pieces I never knew about my father when I'd visit him in prison, is that I just wanted to know him because I didn't know him.
Sure. You know, just because you get, and you know this, just because you physically meet somebody and get to know them, you may never know them.
Yeah, totally.
They may not really they may not even know themselves.
He doesn't really know himself.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So all these other things take place and happen, but the reason they're probably happening is the person's doesn't really know why they're doing it. They're just doing it.
Yeah. So, you know, lots of years of therapy, lots of conferences, lots of encounters with God, like real encounters with God, transformed my heart to realize that I always had a heavenly father that loved me.
Sure.
And he was always watching after me. Even though I didn't have an earthly dad that I experienced, he might have loved me, but you can't really love someone else if you don't love yourself.
True.
You know, so
I agree with that 100%.
So that's kind of like in the book is about redemption. It's really about like a story, a crazy, wild story, NASCAR, tons of, you know, drugs and Iran-Contra scandal. It's everything you could ever want, but it all comes back to knowing who you are and whose you are.
Very good. Are you doing classes at all for people out there at all that maybe are trying to find their way?
I haven't even thought about that. I don't even know what I'm doing. I own a business.
You know what you're doing.
I know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm just trying to get this. I just don't want anyone to make the same mistakes I made. That's my goal in life.
Well, I mean, the book is a good tool to read and learn from that. But I think there's something to be said about having courses or a group that maybe meets once a year to revisit those things.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it circles back with kind of what you've learned, and it keeps you engaged with your life, and it continues to be a form of therapy by helping other people.
Yeah. Well, that's what ministry is, right? It's like,
sure it is.
It's about helping other people. I mean, I meet people every day, and it always goes back to either they have issues with their mom not loving or their dad not loving. It always goes back to that. And if we could just restore people to like the original design, which is to fulfill their calling in the world, because we have a hurt and broken world, to redeem them back to their real purpose, we really would have the kingdom of heaven on earth. If people would really walk out what they're called for, but we get all these distractions and all these negative things that happen throughout our life. And for me, because I'm a Christian, I think that is Satan throwing things in your way to get you away from what you're originally called for, which is to create peace on earth and unity. And I'm still working on that. I mean, I think
still working on that. I think that since and I'm surprised you haven't thought about it, because you have a very wide spectrum of knowledge and wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
Because of your life experiences. You can't learn that in a classroom. The classroom is life and hard knocks, lots of pain.
True.
I think that the correspondence of staying engaged with a group of people where you can constantly go and just everybody discuss their kind of like what's AA called? Is it a 12-step program?
Yeah.
Where there's different series of steps where everybody comes and shares their stories. But how many times have you been in a situation where you have possibly been in a situation where you're talking to people and there's some similarities of things, maybe even though your story is very unique, that they've gone through. And the next thing you know, they're talking about some things they did to get over their hurdle. And the next thing you're like, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said about
Yeah.
group healing,
Yeah, it's true.
as long as it's the right people.
That's true. Oh, I'd love that. I mean,
I think you should do
I would
that.
love that.
I think you should do it.
Okay.
I think that's another part of your ministry.
Cool. I'd love that. I mean, I was a school teacher for years, so I know how to write
So
lesson plans.
So you never honestly thought about that, about doing something like this?
God said, write the book.
But I mean, you never thought, well, I'll take the book because it's a great template.
Yeah.
And let's put it together
like a program.
Yeah, a program where where every quarter or every once a year, at least once a year.
I would love that. Because every single chapter in the book, there's tools in there that kind of tell you like, okay, so if your spirit experienced it, because so my whole life I was pretty